In tonight's news edition, the Iranian president says negotiations between Iran and the six powers that produced a framework nuclear accord are the first step towards better ties between Iran and the world. Syrian military aircraft bombs areas near the Jordanian border for the second consecutive day. And Houthi forces pull back from a central Aden district, and warplanes from the Saudi-led coalition dropped weapons and medical aid to fighters defending Aden. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. Jordan has strongly condemned the terrorist attack that targeted military posts in the Egyptian city of Al-Arish yesterday, claiming the lives of 18 soldiers, 4 civilians, and wounding dozens others. Minister of State for Media Affairs and the government spokesman Mohammed Al-Momani said that the Jordanian government condemns this terrorist act, which was committed by a misled and misleading group. He added that Jordan stands by Egypt and is keen to cooperate with the Arab nation to fight terrorism. The minister also expressed his heartfelt condolences to the Egyptian government, people, and the families of the victims. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said negotiations between Iran and the six powers that produced a framework nuclear accord are the first step towards better ties between Iran and the world. However, in a White House statement, the United States said it would not sign any agreement over Iran's nuclear program that would threaten Israel. This report has more.
After a marathon stretch of late-night negotiations in Lausanne, Switzerland, diplomats announced they'd come up with a framework for an agreement that's been months in the making. There are plenty of details left to iron out, but negotiators took a significant step toward a landmark deal amid at keeping Iran's nuclear program peaceful. Iran would reduce its stockpile of low-enriched uranium by 98% and significantly scale back its number of installed centrifuges according to the plan. In exchange, the United States and the European Union would lift the sanctions that have crippled the country's economy. In Iran, ecstatic crowds welcomed Iranian's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif after he led the negotiators to an initial nuclear agreement. Iranians hope the deal can bring their country in from the cold and help revive their economy. U.S. President Barack Obama said the deal reached between Iran and the six world powers would keep Iran from being able to pursue a bomb either using plutonium or enriched uranium. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said he is pleased with the outcome of talks on Iran's nuclear program, and China called the initial agreement between the world powers and Iran is good news to the world. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius emphasized the use of nuclear energy for civil purposes.
Under no circumstances Iran will ever seek or possess any nuclear weapons.
Germany said it's too early to celebrate an Iran nuclear deal, but expressed hope that Iran will stick to a framework deal reached. Meanwhile, Israel said powers negotiating with Iran must add a new demand that Tehran recognize Israel's right to exist. Nevertheless, Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel vehemently opposed to the framework reach for a nuclear accord.
Israel will not accept an agreement which allows a country that vows to annihilate us to develop nuclear weapons, period. In addition, Israel demands that any final agreement with Iran will include a clear and unambiguous Iranian commitment of Israel's right to exist.
United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said he is convinced that a comprehensive solution to the Iranian nuclear issue will contribute to peace and stability in the region and enable all countries to cooperate urgently to deal with many serious security challenges they face. Loeb Al-Qar for the news at 10.
Syrian military aircraft bombed areas near the Jordanian border for the second consecutive day. The Al-Qaeda-linked Nusra Front said it seized the crossing, but the rebels denied this. Clouds of smoke were seen rising in the Syrian side following the strikes. The Southern Front, an alliance of rebel groups in southern Syria, said the Nasib crossing was still under their control. It added that al-Nusra Front fighters had been told to leave the area. Many of the Jabr Sarhan village residents went out to watch the airstrikes take place on the Syrian side. Before the Syrian crisis, the crossing was a daily transit route for hundreds of trucks transporting goods between Turkey and the Gulf. Daesh terrorists battled rival insurgents for control of a Palestinian refugee camp on Damascus outskirts, attempting to secure a foothold close to President Bashar al-Assad's seat of power. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said Daesh executed 69 people, including children under 18 and women, over the past 5 days as it clashed with the army and other militia around the country. It said several were killed because they worked for the Syrian government and provided a video of 9 men who were shot dead. The monitoring group added that most of the executions happened in the western Hama province, where Daesh advanced into new territory. Houthi forces pulled back from a central Aden district, and warplanes from the Saudi-led coalition dropped weapons and medical aid to fighters defending the southern Yemeni city of Aden. The Houthi fighters and their allies withdrew from crater neighborhoods, as well as one of Aden's presidential residences, which they seized a day earlier. Their withdrawal followed overnight clashes and an airstrike on the presidential palace overlooking the crater. At least one Houthi tank was destroyed and another taken over by President Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi's loyalists. Meanwhile, suspected al-Qaeda fighters stormed a military base in Yemen's port town of Muqalla, killing at least 5 soldiers and ransacking its ammunition store. Soldiers fled the base after the attack, and the suspected al-Qaeda fighters also raided local banks, broke into local government buildings, and set fire to the broadcasting station. China said it had helped 10 countries evacuate 225 of their citizens from Yemen, where rebels have seized the 2 main cities of Aden and Sana'a. This was the first time Beijing has assisted in the evacuation of foreign nationals during an international crisis. The Chinese missile frigate carried the foreign nationals from the port of Aden bound for Djibouti yesterday afternoon. A number of countries, including Italy, Germany, Britain, and Canada, requested China's help with the evacuation. The ship arrived in a port in Djibouti after sailing for 8 hours, and arrangements are being made by their respective governments for their safe return home. U.S. President Barack Obama called Saudi Arabia's King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud yesterday to discuss the deal the United States and international negotiators reached with Iran on its nuclear program. Obama invited Salman and the Gulf Cooperation Council to Camp David for a summit to continue conversations on Iran. Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi called on security forces to arrest anyone breaking the law in the city of Tikrit, where looting has been seen following the ousting of Daesh militants. Abadi said in a statement that enforcement of the law was essential in order to bring life back to the province, as well as returning families to the city. Iraqi security forces carried out clearing operations in the freed city of Tikrit, defusing bombs and chasing out the last of the Daesh militants. A spokesman for the Prime Minister said Abadi had a zero-tolerance policy for any rights abused. Survivors of the Garissa University attack, which saw 147 students murdered by al-Shabaab terrorists, have spoken of the horror they witnessed. Following the attack, some relatives said still waiting for news about their loved ones as countries remain defiant. This report has the details.
Red Cross and emergency medical workers evacuate victims after a deadly attack on a university campus in Kenya. At least 147 people were killed and hundreds others injured after gunmen from the Islamist militant group Al-Shabaab stormed the Garissa University College on Thursday. Officials said the gunmen had been strapped with explosives and were sparing Muslim students but taking many Christian students hostage. Friday morning, residents here are still reeling from the attack and say more needs to be done done to secure their safety.
Most of us are fearful and we don't know what the government would do unless we are convinced that the security would actually work and put things in place when we may go back. But we are afraid that when the situation continues, then some of us are likely maybe to go back to their places, because you cannot work to a place where there's no security at all.
We think that the security should do more. They should act on intelligence promptly. And any information that they get from the public or any other source, they should act on it so that they can rescue the situation before it gets bad like it did yesterday.
The militant group has links to Al-Qaeda and a record of raids on Kenyan soil in retaliation for Nairobi sending troops to fight in its home state of Somalia.
Harry Potter hopped off his Nimbus 2000 in Paris, sending French fans on a one-way ticket to Hogwarts. His arrival was at an exhibition featuring props and costumes from the film franchise. Known as Harry Potter to the locals, the boy wizard school uniform, wands and broomsticks were part of the featured items. Visitors were invited to attend a potion class and to visit giant gamekeeper Hagrid's hut, where costumes worn by some of the characters in the film loomed large over the fireplace. World number one Novak Djokovic recovered from another slow start to beat Spain's David Ferrer 7-5, 7-5 and move into the last four of the Miami Open, where he will face big-hitting American John Isner. Djokovic trailed 4-1 in the first set, but then started playing with more controlled aggression and won 6 of the next 7 games to take the set. The Serb opened up a 3-1 lead in the second, but Ferrer struck to his task and broke Djokovic when he was serving for the match at 5-4. However, the top seed broke straight back to give himself another chance to wrap up the contest, which this time he made sure of. The streets of downtown Long Beach will be buzzing tomorrow as standard gas-running cars make way for dart-shaped racing cars zooming by at breakneck speeds and little noise. The race drivers will be competing in the second Formula E race in the United States. Halfway through its inaugural season, Formula E has offered the same, albeit quieter thrills as the popular Formula One events, with low-slung, open-wheeled cars capable of speeds of up to 220 kilometers per hour. The purpose of the event is to encourage consumers to buy electric, environmentally friendly cars. And now look at the weather. Relatively cold in most areas tonight, with partly cloudy skies and northwesterly light to moderate winds. A slight drop in temperature is expected tomorrow, with fair conditions in most regions and moderate in the Jordan Valley. Winds will be westerly moderate to brisk, stirring dust in the Badia regions. Moderate conditions are expected in the port of Aqaba, with northerly moderate winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. The Iranian president says negotiations between Iran and the 6 powers that produced a framework nuclear accord are the first step towards better ties between Iran and the world. Syrian military aircraft bombs areas near the Jordanian border for the second consecutive day. And Houthi forces pull back from a central Aden district, and warplanes from the Saudi-led coalition drop weapons and medical aid to fighters defending Aden. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.